Now, this is one lady who, I'm sorry, we're conducting an interview on the busiest street that you could possibly have, so I appreciate the fact that you're working through all this. A lady called Michelle.
Yeah.
Now, you only briefly got in touch with me yesterday via the YouTube comments to say that you were going to come to this event. So, firstly, Michelle, what did you think of this event, first of all?
Oh, I thought it was brilliant. I'm really glad that I came because obviously you need the numbers and you need like a lot of people to enable to get the message across. And so I'm really glad that I did come today, and it was thanks to Janaea that I knew about the event. Okay.
What, through a YouTube channel?
Yeah.
Right, okay. Yeah, brilliant. So, how did the event go across for you today? How did it all...
It was really good, and I'd actually forgotten that we were going to have a few speakers. But after listening to them, especially the real victims the real survivors that have come through, and in order to be able to like even just be there, but to be able to stand up in front of people after everything they've been through, and after the way they've been treated by the police and probably social services, God knows who else, just to be able to stand there and say tell their story. Like all of us cried, all of us shed a tear.
I could hear it in the background.
Yeah.
I didn't want to show it on camera because I thought it's not really nice, but you could just hear it.
Yeah.
People were getting visibly upset with what was being said, and quite rightly so. This is a testimony that's come from real people, real victims. It's not just, oh, I'm reading this statement from X, Y, and Z. These are actually the people that have actually they've gone through it. Exactly, yeah. So your political journey, it's took you to here. Now, from what I hear, it didn't start off in this position, did it?
No. I would say it really started in like 2014.
Yeah.
That's when I became a feminist and labelled myself as a feminist.
Right.
And it wasn't until I'd say 2016, it was actually when Trump was elected, that kind of like forced me to reflect on some of the things that I had been like repeating and some of the things that I had been taught to believe in. And it was just after that it was kind of like a bit of an awakening, and since then I would also say I've gone back to some original beliefs that I held before, but that were kind of pushed down because of like the leftist narrative and mentality of like there's no dissent, you can't disagree, slightest disagreement, you're racist, you're every name under the sun.
Really?
Yeah.
So, in your words, to a degree, you kind of self-prescribed lefty at the beginning?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And now, Deborah actually mentioned to me that you were a social justice warrior.
Yeah, I call myself an ex-social justice warrior, ex-feminist, yeah.
So, you say it was the Trump magnification, polarisation. Yeah. So what was it about that made you change your way you're thinking?
I was kind of aware of the fact that he could very much become president, where everyone else was in a bit of denial, like he's an idiot, he's this, that and the other. Yeah. But I was like, no, he could really become president. And people were ignoring like all the issues with Clinton, and I said no, it's like people have had enough of politicians like her, and she kind of expected it. She just kind of expected to be anointed president, and that was the end of the story. She didn't put any effort into it. Where Trump was speaking to a group of people that hadn't had their voices heard in a long time, or just labelled as something else. And yeah, it was after Trump was elected that I kind of reflected back on like where did we go wrong, kind of. But that was when I slowly started to realise when I slowly kind of admitted to all the issues on the left and with feminism, it kind of woke me up to all of that.
So when you were going through that transition, what was your circle like at that time? Because I'm assuming your circle was pretty much like yourself, in pretty much your own politics and the way you were thinking.
Well, because of my own personal circumstances, I was very isolated. I didn't leave the house much, and so I was just fed things through Facebook and all the usual kind of propaganda and messages that are pushed across. But once I was able to kind of venture out into the real world, and that was part of my awakening, you know, getting a job outside of the house for the first time in a good couple of years, and interacting with people with different voices, different opinions, and it was just kind of stepping back into the real world that made me realise that something's not right.
So in terms of your friends, how did they treat you as an individual that all of a sudden Were you unfriended?
Well, I know that there was one girl that I was growing quite close to. I used to also label myself as a feminist, but because of like listening to Jordan Peterson and people like him, I don't like that label anymore. But when I was an atheist, and she was not a practicing Muslim but had a Muslim background, and when I was calling out Christianity and all the issues with Christianity, she was all for it. She was backing me up, she was laughing along with me. But then when I slowly started to realise every religion has its issues, you can't just criticise one. So when I started to criticise religion in general, she took issue with the fact that I was now criticising Abrahamic religions and Islam specifically. And that after that, just as soon as I started doing that, it was, oh, you're a bigot, you're this, that and the other, and she like cut ties with me.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, and how did that make you feel at the time?
It did really hurt me because we didn't get to spend a lot of time together in person because of the distance of where we live. But I just thought that she would be more open to listening to people rather than just like labeling me as a bigot or whatever else.
You're good friends. So
Yeah.
if there's anyone you should be able to be like that with, you would at least think that your good friend would give you the time to
Yeah.
let you explain your views and to
The
understand
big
it a bit
issue that I
better.
had within my circle was actually my brother. We had been very close growing up, very tight-knit. But then it was gradually, as I started working and as I started being open to more opinions, when we finally got to see each other again, he just bombarded me with kind of all these accusations of, oh, your Facebook posts are now offensive, they're this, that and the other. He asked if I knew what alt-right was, and he basically said that he was worried that I was becoming some sort of alt-right Trump supporter.
So because you're no longer thinking like them, they're now starting the process of ostracising you, but not only that, defaming you at the same time.
Yeah.
So because you think differently to us, now you are treading on the path of the wrong uns in a sense.
And there was also times where I tried to reach out to my brother and say like, well, watch this and see what you think.
Sure.
But just because of, say, like something in the title,
Yeah.
oh no, I'm not going to watch that at all because it has SJW in the title, and SJW is a derogatory term. And I said, well, I used it when I was an SJW and I still use it now that I'm not. So how exactly is it derogatory if it's something that I use to refer
Social
to myself?
justice warrior.
Yeah.
It's explanatory. It's not defaming anyone. On this side of the fence, you could argue people have took that comment as if to say people who like to trigger.
Yeah.
I guess so. But in other words, you're only reacting to something that you feel is unjust within society. So I don't see how anyone should trigger off just them three letters anyway. At least have the time to look at what they're talking about.
He wasn't willing to listen to like any other messages that I wanted to try and get him to listen to, because the video that I tried to share was actually by a gay guy that was basically saying the same things that I was saying, you know, all these people that preach tolerance, and if you speak badly of Christianity, oh, they'll give you a round of applause, but if you speak badly on Islam, you're a racist and you're every name under the sun. And that's what this guy in the video was basically trying to explain. But my brother wouldn't watch it at all because it had SJW in the title.
Wow.
Yeah.
That for me, that is blinkered.
Yeah, and I felt like I was trying to reach out and trying to build bridges when he wasn't willing. He wasn't willing to it. Like,
he's got his stance, and he's not going to maneuver.
Yeah.
You know. So, in terms of your parents and whatnot, how your change, how's that affected?
Well, actually, I think not really politically, but like I said, I'm a massive Jordan Peterson fan, and I think that actually helped me repair the bad relationship I had with my mum. And so that's helped with a lot of my personal issues. And now we have a close relationship, but whereas my brother still has those issues that he's not even willing to see her or speak to her, a bit personal, but it's kind of like the mentality of you have to be willing to listen and also to speak, rather than just ignore the issue and pretend it will go away.
That's an art that your brother needs to learn and practice a bit more.
Yeah.
How old is he, if you don't mind me asking?
He's 11 years older than me, so he is 38.
You know, when you first said it, when I thought you were going to say he's 11, and I thought, well, fair enough, he's only a kid. But he's 11 years older than you.
Yeah. And so I always looked up to him as like my role model. And it's funny enough, when we were both younger, when he was about my age, he had the same opinions. There was a film that came out, Tropic Thunder, that used the term retarded repeatedly during the film, and obviously there were people that took issue with that, but he defended their use. Whereas now, when I point that out to him, he was like, well, I was wrong, and this is why I was wrong. But he doesn't really have a reason why he was wrong. He was just like, I was wrong because it's been beaten into me.
Well, that's the argument that you could argue with where he's at now anyway, particularly if you don't want to listen or watch a video that's just got 3 letters in it. Seriously, just watch it.
Yeah.
You know, and then make your mind up.
Yeah.
It might upset you. You might think after 5 minutes, I'm not listening to any more of this. But there might be one little nugget in there that just might make you think.
Spark,
you know, not to change your mind, just to make you think. That's all it is, you know. No one's trying to put a gun to anyone's head and try and say, you've got to think this now, or you're...
Well, they are, kind of.
In the way that they're going about it.
Yeah.
And there's I mean, what you're kind of itemising there is a slight element of bullying that comes alongside this.
Yeah, that's how it really came across, because he never really, like, called me when he thought these issues were starting, you know, never really had a small conversation. He just waited until it built up so much, and then bombarded me with all these accusations of, you know, Trump, alt-right and transphobic and all the rest of it.
So these are all the buzzwords that he's grown up with in terms of that. So you must be a part of all that, you know, in terms, because that's the only way you can kind of make sense of it, I guess.
Yeah.
So are you still friendly and talking? Apart from politics, do you get on all right, or has it literally crossed that line?
Well, since we've had our argument, our relationship hasn't been the same.
Right.
And I just feel as though it has created he's allowing it to create a rift between us when nothing really has changed, except for, you know, what's going on in the world, and we have different opinions about what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
And it's very disappointing, especially with someone I used to be so close with.
Yeah. And particularly you come from the position you come from now, which he should really collate that and think, well, there might be a reason why she started off at A and she's worked her way all the way here now. Yeah. It's a transitional thing.
And he's not really willing to listen to how I got there.
Right.
It's just, oh, you're this now, that's wrong, and you should stop.
Oh, Jesus. So that's not dampened your spirit then, I take it?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, it's
dampened my spirits, because now it's kind of like me and my brother were so close, and we both had issues with my mum, but now me and my mum are so close, and we can see the issues that my brother is still kind of holding on to. And it's like the saying that I've heard about with SJWs and the sort, is like, you're not willing to let your wounds heal. You just want to have the open wound, so to show it off and say, oh, poor me. You're not willing to take the steps to recover and like move on from it.
It's an uncomfortable place to go through all this information and to admit about nefarious stuff that's going on within your own country. And it's not easy, but it's a pill that we all have to take, you know. So eventually, hopefully, there won't be anything nefarious that happens to him that makes him come to that conclusion. It's far better if people come to that conclusion, or at least to a degree of it, without anything happening. But it's like today when we're talking about grooming victims and we're watching people just, as you know, this is a tourist belt, so there's been so many tourists wandering up and down, and you think, well, how many people that are walking past that are looking at this that are not really interested, but if one of their daughters was stood up there doing a speech, it would become their world, and they've got to scream it.
I was kind of a little bit worried, as like you said, where it's like high traffic tourist area. I was a little bit worried that if someone heard what we were talking about, ignoring the fact that there are real survivors there, I was a little bit worried that maybe some sort of, pardon my language, but an arsehole or whatever would just shout out something like an insult towards us just because of the subject matter we're talking about. Just
jumping the gun, drawing their own conclusions without actually listening. There's so much of that goes on. I was actually expecting that myself, and I'd noticed that there were a couple of people congregating around the outsides, which is good. I wasn't fearful of it, but I was expecting someone at some point to shout something, you know, and then me to turn the camera to them and kind of expose them for the muppet that they are. But I don't know, that didn't happen. So I'm only supposing that maybe the narrative of being all women, showing the ribbons of the suffragettes, and, you know, because there was a few people that asked, literally, when they'd seen that ribbon, they were like, well, they're the rosette, that's the colours of the suffragette movement, isn't it? So that pulled them in just looking at the actual rosette. So there's always ways of getting people round to at least think, not to say we're right, you're wrong.
Yeah.
So in terms now, where do you stand? Do you feel that you're doing the right thing, doing what you're doing now?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like I'm definitely more in line with what I actually believe and what I actually feel. And I've also noticed that the campaigners are starting to knock on people's doors. And the only thing I'm really interested in asking them is their position on free speech. Because I think it starts from there, and then you have to grow from that point. But if they hum and haw about free speech, well,
only goes so far.
Yeah.
Well,
then no, sorry, it's not free then.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And so that's kind of my mentality at the moment.
Brilliant. Well done to you. I mean, free speech is going to hurt you as well as heal you.
Yeah.
There's going to be things within it that I won't like, but he's entitled, or they're entitled to say it, just like I'm entitled to rebuff. And you might not like what I say, so. You know, there's no need for triggering on any side by any kind of.
And even in my personal life, I say to people, like, don't be scared of telling me something that you're like. If you're worried about saying something, if I'll take it in the wrong way, it doesn't matter. If we have an argument, we have an argument, and we'll recover from that. We'll get over it.
Yeah, certainly. Michelle, you've been an absolute star. Thank you very much.
No problem.
I take it this is going to be a regular event particularly with Tony Bugles. Events?
I haven't heard myself, but if it's
You're
a regular thing, definitely.
I'm sure she'll hold another one. I'm not sure whether she'll go back to doing the marches or literally go to conferences, but with what Tony's doing, she's certainly not going to stop. It's been absolutely fantastic to meet you.
Oh, thank you, and yourself.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. And to hear your story, because your story is going to make people think. No matter what side the fence they're on, because it says so much.
Yeah.
There's no point in me just interviewing people that are just within the echo chamber. I want to interview people that this is socially and mentally affected. That you started from here, from this position, and now gone to Jesus Christ. And you could have gone the other way. You know, you could have been a total someone who's deemed as far right, who is now far left. That's just as interesting, because I'm like, what's your politics? Why have you got that? What's led to that way of thinking? So. This is what is going to change perceptions of people, interviews like this. So thank you very much for taking the time out. Where are you a local lady?
Yeah, just 2 miles away. So,
all right, okay, so you've not got far to travel home. Well, have a safe journey back.
And yourself.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Safe journey.
You very much.
You are welcome. This is Red Pill Phil. Okay? Oh, no problem at all. Loving speaking to people with an open mind, no matter what their political persuasion is. And that lady Michelle there has just been living proof of it. So, honestly, I love it. Love you all. Even the pissing SJWs.